Alright, this is kind of a note to self, but others may find it useful as to how to do a detailed landscape plan to be able to detail up the elevations of paving and landscape features. Alright, so just real quick, the first thing you need to do to kind of set this thing in motion to be helpful, and here's kind of a detail of the site, is to have the right information about elevations available to you. So I've created an elevation for a first floor, and everything's relative off of that in my case. That is set at 309 foot 8 based on a surveyor's plan and the appropriate design. But what you need to have is an elevation that's actually at 0, not at 3098. So you take this, if this is where you started with a first floor, and that's how the template comes in, first floor, second floor, basement, whatever, level 1, level 2, you need to take this elevation and copy it, Control-C, down 309 feet, in my case, 309 feet 8 inches. So if you take a look at this and you turn off the crop view, you see that I already have an elevation 0 that is 309 feet down, down here. So this is at elevation 0, and I called it 0-A because I had another thing called 0. Alright, so going back and resetting the crop view. I'm actually done the work, but I want to kind of record how I got here. So the first floor elevation, and of course you probably know that there is an elevation tag. So you can find that. It's under annotate spot elevation, and you can modify them. And make different types of ones. This is the one that I'm using. I created it. So, and I've gone into the view and made a shortcut, which is EL. Going into view. It's hid behind here, I think. User interface, keyboard shortcuts, and I've just called it EL so that you can tag things real quick. Alright, so I've created a slab here and a slab here, and the properties that I'm trying to do, the design is supposed to be that this starts along this line at a ½ inch down from the first floor elevation, and it pitches 1/8 of an inch this way, and then from this point it pitches 1/8 of an inch that way. So you probably know 1/8 of an inch to the foot is, not surprisingly, 1 inch in 8 feet, and it's also 0.01 for slope. So let's do this a couple things. So I've created a slab here, and I've started it at a ½ inch down because I want this starting point to be thresholded down a ½ inch from the first floor. So there's this helpful little thing where you can deform floors and roofs by picking the corner points and sort of pushing them up or down, or you could fold them into V shapes by adding a point in the middle that's like folded down. So in my case it's pretty simple, and all you need to do is go into the add a point. So this corner here, I'm sorry, not add a point, modify sub-elements. So this point here should be at 0 because that's at 0 from a ½ inch down, and then I want to go from that point down 1/8 of an inch a foot, 12 feet, that's 1.5 inches. So this should be at -1.5, again from a ½ inch down, that's where I started. And then this point here wants to be 1/8 of an inch to the foot below this one. This is 15 foot 2, going to round it to 16 feet, that's 2 inches down, this should be -3.5, bingo. And then this is at 0, so this is a kind of a ready to go and ready to detail. So if I come in an elevation tag around it, I'm going to find that these are the elevations relative to the first floor. Not the way you want to leave it, we're not going to leave it that way, it's a handy thing you can do later. Alright, so here's what we want now. We want this walkway, plaza, to pitch 1/8 of an inch to foot down from here to here, and everywhere. It's going to pitch 1/8 of an inch a foot from here down, and from here down. All I need to know is where I end up. So from the surveyor's plan, I wrote this. This is not this isn't calculated. I just wrote down from the surveyor's plan that I want to end up at 307 foot 10, which is 307.83, and that is negative 1 foot 10 if you just subtract from the 309.8 of the first floor. All right, so that's all good. So the first point I'm going to set in using that modify sub-elements, so I go into this, so I want to set this at negative 1 foot 10. I want this to be an inch below that, because remember, 8 feet, that's another inch down. I want to be this at negative 1 foot 11, all good. And I want this to be equal to the negative 2 3/4 inches that I picked up over here. So click, I set that to negative 2 3/4. I want this to be 1/8 of an inch below that. I'm sorry, 1/8 of an inch to the foot, 1 inch. So this should be negative 3 3/4. Good. Okay, so that's set. And to back out of this mode, you just hit escape and you don't lose everything. It just backs you out. Okay, so then I want to set this point, this point, this point, and this point. And that's based on, you can see there's nothing folded here. This is a straight line slope from the negative 2 3/4 inches to the negative 1 foot 10 inches. So if I just click on this with an elevation in the middle, this will tell me, and you notice, see, it's kind of sloping right along. So if I click on this, I already did it, I get 1 foot 2, in this case, at 5/8. I want this to be an inch below that, remember 8 feet, and I want this to be 3 inches below that because it's 17 feet. I actually made it 2 1/8 inch below this. So just click in there, set those, click, 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 click. Okay, all done. That wasn't actually that hard. It's just repetitive. And the last thing that needs to happen is that this has to slope down 6 inches from here because this is the handicap ramp. And that's it. I mean, I did this before, so I'm doing it a little quick because who wants to watch it be done. But the thing that's really helpful to know is because you have a 0 elevation, when you click on this, there's this setting. What is the elevation set relative to? I have it set based on the current level, which is first floor. So I'm at negative 1 foot 10 from the first floor. But I could set it at relative to 0, and that would give me the helpful elevation that the layout folks need. I have it in feet and inches because it's simpler to work on this way, but you could create another one that's fractional feet and inches, which I've actually already done in my tag types. So you could reset this to, oops, I didn't do it. You could reset this to relative to decimal feet. Decimal feet to 2 decimal places. Okay, okay. And then that would all go to that. But the helpful thing to do is now that you did all this and you click these all over the drawing, just right click it, select all instances visible in view, change this to relative to base 0, and then the whole plan is done. Everything is detailed up. Super slick. And then also if I'm waiting for additional information, let's say, and if I just change these points, if I had to push things up or down, you can kind of come back in and do that. That's it. Not that hard. Note to self.